and it's kind of a narrow band of rainforest that follows the Atlantic coast. And unlike the Amazon, it's very mountainous. So the mountains range right up to just over 2,000 meters. And REGUA is located in the Guapiçu Valley, which is about 80 kilometers northeast of Rio City. So, right. So the actual valley itself is in Rio de Janeiro state, and we're probably about an hour and a half drive from Rio City. So, and the reserve lies on the coastal slope of the mountains. So it's rather than the inland slope. So it's the kind of humid forest side. The nature reserve is more or less continuous Atlantic forest, and the reserve ranges in altitude from 35 meters right up to over 2,000 meters, which on the photo here is the peaks of those mountains. Most of that forest is evergreen humid forest, and which is what's shown in the photo there. So it's kind of what most people think of when they think of rainforest. So there's epiphytes growing everywhere, and there's lianas and vines and all that sort of thing. But there are lots of other pockets of habitat within the Atlantic forest as well. So there's things like swamps, and there's a forest habitat called Restinga, which is found on the coast. And there's also wetlands, and there's grasslands, that kind of thing. And so REGUA also includes not only the lowland forest, which is what you can see here, and several fairly large rivers as well, of which the Guapiçu River is the main one, which is what the reserve and the NGO is named after. But also wetlands, includes wetlands as well. It includes some Tabibua swamp. Also includes some areas of wet pasture as well. And so there's a variety of habitats, but most of it is lowland rainforest.
Let's just talk about a few of the sort of the wildlife species you find there. So I don't normally have to quote numbers, but I have to quote numbers here. I mean, come on, 485 species of birds at REGUA, 62 of which are endemics. And here is just a few of them. So tell us a bit about sort of the bird life there.
There are some quite special birds at REGUA, which there aren't any species that are not found anywhere else, but there are some species which are without a doubt easier to see at REGUA than anywhere else in South America, and this bird in this slide, the Shrike-like Cotinga, is definitely one of them. So a friend of mine who lives in South America, has lived in South America for 15 years, still hasn't seen this bird. So but at REGUA it's actually relatively straightforward to see, and it's quite high on the target on the target list of target species for a lot of visiting bird watchers, without a doubt. So, and this is a bird that because of the reforestation efforts as well, is actually probably easier to see now than when I first visited the reserve. So it's definitely come down in altitude, so it's close to the lodge now because of the reforestation. So it's getting easier to see, if anything. So REGUA does have, like you say, 73 species of mammals, of which 53 are actually bats. So it's got an amazing diversity of bats. And but there are some key mammals which, because of the size of the forested area in the Guapiçu Valley, that we're still fortunate to have. And the southern woolly spider monkey, or the southern miraquí, which is a Brazilian name for it, is probably our flagship mammal. It's the rarest primate in South America, and there's very few populations left. And we've got a very small population. We're not quite sure how many, probably 15, 20, 25 animals, something like that. And they are actually still very difficult to see. I've never seen one. And in actual fact, many of the guides have only seen them a few times. But recently we've had some researchers visit the reserve, and they've managed to follow them and put camera traps out. And this unbelievably was a camera trap image. So wow. It's just managed to capture some really good behavior, and we've found a good idea now of where the animals are hanging out. But other than woolly spider monkey, we've also got things like puma. We've got a good population of puma on the reserve, and ocelot, and some other cats as well. And we've got neotropical otter. We've got a really good population of brown-throated sloth. So it's one of those animals you're virtually guaranteed to see when you come to REGUA. But also lots of animals that have appeared as a result of the restoration work that we're doing, the habitat restoration as well. So things like capybara, which are associated with wetlands, the world's largest rodent. We've now got a big population of those at the wetlands as well. Whereas when I first went to REGUA, there were none to be seen. So yeah, a good population of mammals. Some of the flagship ones like the spider monkey and the puma are exceptionally difficult to see. Because of the history of hunting in the Atlantic forest, mammals are extremely shy, but we're fortunate enough to have a good population of some of them anyway.
73 species of mammal, 76 species just of hawk moth. That's outstanding. That's amazing.
It's incredible diversity. I mean, it's the hawk moths are one of the easier groups to study, and actually REGUA's. We've produced 4 field guides now because there just are not field guides available for many of these groups in southeast Brazil. And the first one that we produced was for hawk moths, and we were fortunate. A friend and colleague of mine, Alan Martin, and George Bizzaro, who's REGUA's research coordinator, they teamed together with Alexander Suarez from the National Museum in Rio and produced a field guide. But there are many other species of moth at REGUA, and we've probably identified, outside of hawk moths, probably only another 60 species for certain. We've photographed probably somewhere 700 or 800, 900 species, if not more than that we just can't put a name to yet. So, and what we've done is actually we've built the world's first moth wall at the lodge, and what this is it's actually a concrete structure with a roof with mercury vapor lamps on it. And what we do is we put it on quite often and in the morning you can just go along and it will be covered in moths on a good night. And that's how we've managed to photograph and start putting together a bio-inventory of these moth species. It's something that guests can even get involved with as well, because the wall is actually at the lodge. So it's one of those things that people submit photographs, and slowly we're building up a sort of online image an image database of the moths that are found there. But they're just very hard to identify.
Right. So 76 species of just hawk moth. We've heard about how many of the other moths. 73 species of amphibian. Presumably, the bulk of them are going to be frogs. Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, frogs. There's quite a few toads as well. But we've been fortunate to have several groups of researchers visit over the years and actually produce scientific papers and also species lists for the frogs. So we've got a pretty good idea of which species are present, especially around the wetlands, but also in in much of the forest as well. But obviously many frogs are found very high up in the trees. So there's going to be no doubt many more species that to be found at the reserve yet. And without continued support and donations and funding from our supporters, we would not be able to protect anywhere near the amount of forest that we do. So it's something we're immensely grateful for, and without support from individuals right up to large conservation organisations, REGUA would not be able to do what we do. So it's something that we're always grateful for receiving.
Thank you. And not only to you for sort of giving us this interview, but to the owners who you mentioned, to the people that they are working with, to the locals that are out there and the volunteers that are helping. This is absolutely critical work. You can see by the number of species and by how they're repopulating that it's working. It's incredible. And they deserve such a massive thank you from the anybody that's into conservation, from that community and beyond. They deserve a massive thanks. Without projects like yours, we would be in a lot worse state than we are. Not saying we're in a good state, but we'd be in a lot worse state than we are. So thank you very much to you and all your colleagues.
Thank you, Alan. And I'll definitely pass on your thanks and appreciation. And I'd like to say thank you very much for the opportunity to tell you and everybody else about REGUA. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Good. Well, and thanks again for your time, and I'll hopefully speak to you again.
Yes, love that. Be good. Thank you.
Take care, Lee. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Bye now.